This is California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerantz. Our guest today is Rusty Bailey. He's a member of the Riverside City Council. As a result of finishing first in a recent primary, he is advancing to the mayoral election, which will be held in November 2012. Congratulations. We wish you the best of luck in November. But most importantly, why, as a father of two, a government high school teacher, and a council member running for mayor?
I care about the future of Riverside. It's that simple. I'm a native Riversider. My grandfather came in 1914. And the Baileys have been serving Riverside ever since.
Your father's a judge.
My father's a judge.
And you have seen some good times in Riverside. You've seen some tough times in Riverside. I think it's fair to say the last few years have been really challenging, more for the county than the city specifically, but it has to have been difficult for you as a council member to really witness Riverside in a lot of ways unravel under the weight of this recession.
Well, a lot of it's out of our control.
Right.
And so in Riverside, as we've done in the past, is what can we control? And then it's not worry about the rest. And so look at the renaissance that we put together and the investment in our infrastructure, $1.2 billion. What other city could pull that together during a recession?
Well, let's talk about the infrastructure, because apparently you've done a good job. Recently, Riverside was named the #1 intelligent community in the
world.
World.
And that's it.
In the world.
We're going global.
You went from top 21 to top 7, and this year, #1. You beat Austin, Texas. I mean, that says a lot right there.
It's the first
the
time.
Headquarter of Dell.
That's it. It's the first time in North America since New York has won this award. And we're legit, right? I mean, this is something that...
Why did you win? I mean, really tell us,
Yeah.
nitty gritty, what has the city done over the last few years to be deemed the world's most intelligent city?
A couple of things. One of them, you got to give our chief information or chief innovation officer, they call him now, Steve Reneker, the credit for creating Smart Riverside and bridging the digital divide in Riverside. So information technology was one way of doing that, broadband and wireless that we have in our city that most cities
And we've been working at Charter to help that.
That, and then the collaborative spirit, the social capital that has been built up amongst organizations, especially in the education realm. And so we're taking education to the next level with completion counts in Riverside. I'm sure you've talked about that. But what they saw in Riverside, they didn't see anywhere else when it came to the collaborative spirit and the investment in the future, which is in our students,
universities.
That's it.
And let's talk about universities, because we know that UC Riverside really has come into its own. A chancellor that's on board, Tim White. He starred on a recent episode of Undercover Boss. I saw the repeat. It was incredibly moving. But Chancellor White has made it his mission to open UCR Medical School. From the moment he stepped in the door, that has been his #1 priority. We thought we were there, but as a result of a failure by the state to provide certain funding, accreditation was not granted in 2011. As we speak today, that is the #1 goal, to obtain accreditation this year and then open in 2012. Talk to me about the city of Riverside's commitment to UC Medical.
Yeah,
UCR Medical.
it's got to be our #1, commitment when it comes to job creation and the future of, our healthcare infrastructure.
And talk to me about that, because I do know that the Inland Empire faces challenges as it relates to medical doctors in the region. I mean, it is per capita understaffed.
Half, right? It's half the need that we have here in Riverside. And so our healthcare, is definitely impacted by not having enough general practitioner doctors. We have half as many as we should per capita. And so that's going to address that issue. But also, we've got a significant need for jobs and high-tech, white-collar jobs, and that's what it's going to be. It's an economic engine for the city.
And explain that, because when we think about UCR Medical School, one could take the simple approach is, we'll get a few more professors, a few more nurses and library assistants, and that's it. But there are catalytic consequences that are dramatic.
Right. When you look at a doctor, a general practitioner, opening their door, putting their shingle out, that's $1 million a year economic impact for wherever it is, right? And a year. So all of the different ancillary businesses that go into that and support businesses that feed into that system will help us address the needs that job gap need that we have, the unemployment issue that we have in Riverside.
I want to talk about the Renaissance Project, which has been very successful. It is a project where you really revitalized the downtown community. Part of the way that you were able to do that was through programs as part of the Redevelopment Agency of Riverside. there is no more redevelopment agency of Riverside or in any other community in this state as a result of a law passed in 2011, which was upheld by the California Supreme Court. Talk to us about how that is impacting your city.
Well, again, that was out of our control for the most part.
Well stated.
We tried our best to lobby and to advocate for why redevelopment was important and why we were doing it right in Riverside. If you look at our track record, we invested in infrastructure, and that's the best way to pay it forward, so to speak, with the money that was in redevelopment. But it was more than downtown; it was the entire city, and that's why it was so successful. The Renaissance program, because everybody felt it in the state of Riverside.
All 7 wards.
All 7 wards, parks and libraries and roads and sewer systems and electric and utility systems, water systems. So it was the entire, what I say sometimes people don't understand, guts to brains, right? I mean, it was the whole body experience that was invested in Riverside.
So many of us had thought that even though redevelopment had been eliminated, that there would be some compromise in Sacramento which would allow some form of redevelopment to survive, be it affordable housing or whatever different type of program. But the governor released his May revise a few months back, and it indicated a larger deficit than he anticipated. And so it does not appear that, at least this year, there's going to be any new form of redevelopment. So my question for you is, what tools does the city of Riverside have to incentivize, to lure, to attract new business?
We're the #1 intelligent community in the world. I mean, that's one way to do that, is to tell our story of the positive things that are occurring here, the successes that we've had over the last few years. And the Renaissance, that investment is a competitive advantage when you're attracting a business. You bring them down and you walk, downtown mall, and you showed them the Fox Theater and the new hotel that was just built in Riverside. What other city has built a new hotel in their city? We're redoing the convention center, right? The municipal auditorium has just been refurbished, and we're going to have, some concerts there from the promoter of Coachella Valley Music Festival. So Riverside is attracting talent. Riverside is attracting investment, and that right there is an economic development engine.
One of the reasons that prognosticators believe you were successful in the primary, coming in first, is because you walked, you walked, you walked. You have been walking for months. What I want to ask you is, while walking, what were the voters of Riverside saying to you? What is on their minds?
Well, 10,000 doors was our campaign. That's what we got out to as Team Bailey. It wasn't just me.
I understand.
It was a team of 200 people that were on board Team Bailey and knocking on doors every weekend and some weekdays. And so it was a team effort. It's not just
Fair
about
enough.
me. But the #1 municipal, as I mentioned in public in the budget hearing, we just went through the budget, another balanced budget that we have in Riverside, is roads. The first thing that they feel, other than turning on the light and the water, which they expect to be able to use on a daily basis, they get in that car, they go on the road. First thing they feel leaving their house, last thing they feel coming home. And we've got some issues in infrastructure when it comes to the streets that we need to invest in.
Now, I know the city got some stimulus dollars through the Obama administration. That money presumably is dried up since the program is finished.
That's right.
Is there any other place where you can get grants or funding for transportation improvements?
We are leveraging some of those, dollars from the federal government and state dollars to come up with what's called kind of a mini renaissance in road improvements. And so I think it's close to about $30 million that we're going to put into our streets and improving streets across the city again. The major arterial, Magnolia Avenue being one of those major arterials that's going to get some love, so to speak, from the city when it comes to that core municipal function of making sure that our streets don't have potholes and they're safe for biking and other uses.
So there's a nice gap between the June primary and November. How do you keep the momentum going?
You just do it. You get out there and you keep knocking and you keep walking and you keep talking, and it's nice to be, the #1 position, because people want to jump on the bandwagon. There's momentum, but you can't take anything for granted, and we won't do that, and we're going to be out to another 10,000 doors.
His name is Rusty Bailey. He is a candidate for mayor for the city of Riverside. I'm Brad Palmer. Thank you so much for watching California Edition. Welcome back to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerantz. Glad you're still with us. Our guest is Tom Hunt. He's a member of the school board for Riverside Unified. And as you know, the city of Riverside was recently named the most intelligent community in the world, the entire world. And I recently spoke with Rusty Bailey, who's a member of the city council, and he mentioned
And a school teacher for us.
And a school teacher, teaches government. He mentioned to me that one of the reasons why was because of the schools in the city. Tell us about that.
Well, Rick Miller, thank you, Brad, for
Please.
having me here. Rick Miller, our superintendent, and Jay McPhail, our director of instructional technology, have just been a gold mine for us. They've taken us from zero to where one of our high schools, now Ramona High School, is the only high school in California, third in America, that is all digital.
Pull it out.
Now we have
You
two.
brought props.
Yeah, we brought props. This is the pad we give the kids.
I'm going to hold it up if I may.
And we asked them not only all their subjects are on there, but one of the things that Jay developed, and it won at this same event, Coolest Broadband App, was an app that we had called the Dashboard. So when you go home at night and you hand your parents this, they can log on and see whether Jay turned in his work, because all his teachers report.
Brilliant.
They know where he is in his schedule for the year, and they know where he's in his schedule towards graduation.
You did something that I thought was so wise, so smart, and that is on here are all the textbooks for the year.
Yeah.
Okay, so that saves money, saves
Lots
paper.
of money. Lots of money.
But you're allowing the kids to use this for other methods, other items.
Put their music, put their games. You know, we have our own rules about certain things on the net, so do mom and dad.
Well, that's fine.
But when a young person has their music on there, they're going to make sure they hang on to it. And when they're listening to it or playing their game, they might think, I think I'll take a little time off and look at my biology homework or whatever. It's brought grades
incentivizing.
up. And the other interesting thing, we usually lose about 10% of our textbooks, and we have charged for that, and it's a big cost to us. These things come back pretty good.
They don't lose them.
They don't lose them, they respect them.
I love that. And I want to talk, though, about other challenges, because we do know that school districts throughout the state are facing challenges. A few years ago, very few school districts were deemed a negative certification or a qualified certification by the State Department of Education. Now, it seems like virtually every school district is at least facing a qualified certification, including Riverside Unified, Alvord, Harupa Unified. These are all in the Inland Empire. Explain what's happening.
Well, it's a crowded bus. We're all going to be on it. The 5 short years that I've been on the board now, Brad, we have cut $125 million from our budget. We're now at about $290-ish million, and our expenses will be about $312, $316 next year. We'll be into our reserves, which we're good with. It's just the degradation of the funding of the California legislature, and it's about the foundation of our state.
And let's talk about that, because we know that California has cut significant sums from the state budget with public education in mind. I mean, billions of dollars have been cut. We also know that the governor is putting on the ballot an initiative which would increase sales tax by 1/4 cent for 4 years, increase income taxes on the wealthy for 7 years. That will be on the ballot in November. What position is Tom Hunt taking on this tax initiative?
I've got to take a pro position because it will mean about a little less than $20 million to us per year. That allows us, I mean, when you think about what we've had to cut, and that mainly when your budget is principally, I should say, salaries, it's people.
Right.
And so we have less counselors, which is very important to me and our board, and the teachers. I think one of the main problems, let me just say, is that in Sacramento, when either a Democrat senator or a Republican senator looks at a teacher, all they see is a union. We see an educator, and in Riverside, 90% of the time I see a neighbor. And we have got to get away from this union mentality with this, and all of us, and restore that they're educators and it's an education system.
But if you look at the environment today, public unions are getting hammered.
Yeah.
We think about what happened in Wisconsin, where the governor had eliminated collective bargaining. He was retained in a recall. I know it deals with pensions, but San Diego, San Jose, they recently passed pension reform, overwhelming majorities. 18 of 20 pension reforms have been passed in the last few years. Only San Francisco denied. Again, that's a pension issue, but it really goes to the question of public unions, and the teachers' unions have become the poster children for what's, quote, wrong with unions.
You know, I'm a Republican, but I'm a citizen first. And I really believe that teachers shouldn't have to have a union. We should have a system that they feel comfortable in and they can advance in, and we can judge them on their value added. But because of the archaic system of education we have, they seemingly have to have a union.
So, but let me ask you, since you have identified yourself as a Republican, I think it's fair to say that the Republican Party in Sacramento has come out strongly against the tax initiative. And I mean, I recently
Sadly.
interviewed Bob Huff, the Senate leader, and Connie Conway, the Assembly leader. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They are opposed.
Well, second only to the prison guards, the teachers union in Sacramento, CTA, is the largest contributor to Democratic causes. So everything's affected by that. If they can deplete that, I mean, I don't want to get so much into politics of it, but I understand why Senator Huff would feel that way. But again, it's too dangerous to deal with. It's about our education system. And all of us as Californians have to demand that we get back to what it's supposed to be about, and that's educating our replacement parts.
Well, let me ask you, you know, recently there was an initiative on the ballot dealing with cigarette taxes.
Yeah.
As we speak today, it's going down to defeat. It's still seesawing, but as we speak today. If Californians won't even tax smokers, do you think they're ready to tax themselves?
I'm worried that Californians and Americans are into soundbite, philosophy. And I think that was a soundbite situation. The money wasn't going to be spent in California. Of course, most of our money is not spent in California. I believe that if you look at education issues, Californians have been very good about passing those. We were told if we wanted to extend our facilities bond, we'd have a 92% chance of it passing. It's 55% in this November. We decided we want a much more detailed program to give to our voters. But generally, about 80% of school bonds pass.
They do.
People still understand that education's key.
But this is tricky because some of the money goes to school, some goes to prison, some goes to debt. But look, I just look at the landscape. I think the Inland Empire will be ground zero as it relates to the tax initiative. I mean, if the tax initiative can hold its own in the Inland Empire, I think it's got a decent shot of passing. And that's why I ask, I mean, as an identified Republican, are you going to go to the mat for this tax initiative? Because, look, you're an elected official, you win by large margins, you're respected in this community. I mean, I spoke with Stan Sniff. He's the Riverside County Sheriff. He also identifies as a Republican. I mean, if you have Republican local elected officials coming out for the tax initiative, that does a huge amount for the proponents of the initiative.
Well, there's an R after my name, but it stands for Riverside. And I believe we've got to be about Riverside. It's a big state, and we are a microcosm of what's going to happen. I mean, LA is sort of all mixed up, but we are really the future of California. And our Latino community is in the school district is very much part of it. And if we don't give them the proper education and give them the opportunities for career or college, for a successful life, then we're just degrading our entire society.
If the initiative does not pass, the governor has said that he will be forced to pull the trigger on what's known as a trigger cut. And that would result likely, and I'm just saying what I'm told, I'm a neutral observer on this one, in cutting the school year by 3 weeks. LAUSD, for example, in the last 4 years has cut the school year by 18 days. Has Riverside Unified cut the school year yet?
We cut it last time by, it was 5 days.
Are
We're allowed up to 10, but we only do 5.
Are you prepared? Is there a contingency plan in case the initiative goes down?
We actually didn't base our budget on the taxes passing. We based our budget on a worst case. Some do completely the opposite, some reserve it, but we base it on a worst case, so we would not have that kind of, cataclysmic sort of happening.
So if it fails, the school year will not be cut short in Riverside Unified?
No, we'll have to readjust. I mean,
We don't know yet.
The school year means teacher taken away from the contract. That's what people forget. You can't do it in the middle of the year.
I understand. His name is Tom Hunt. He is a member of the school board in Riverside Unified. My name is Brad Palmer. Thank you so much for watching California Edition. Welcome back to California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerantz. I'm glad you're with us today. Our guests are Phil Hamilton and Randy Putz. Phil is the chairman of the Big Bear Valley Trails Foundation. Randy is the vice chairman. Congratulations to both of you on your leadership in this important organization, which does what, Mr. Chairman?
Well, basically, we are a broad-based organization servicing. Our mission is to try to make Big Bear Valley a more non-motorized friendly valley. We have equestrians, we have hikers, we have mountain and road bikers that sit on our board, and we're really working very hard to try to encourage people to come to our valley and enjoy it.
Randy, give us a sense of the scope of Big Bear Valley. We all know Big Bear
Right.
Lake, but give us a scope of what the valley is.
Well, the valley basically surrounds the actual lake, and we're smack dab in the middle of the San Bernardino National Forest, which is actually one of the most heavily used national forests in all of the country. So it's a very unique place. We're this little island of nature up there in the mountains, but we have a lot of people that come and visit us. So it creates some very unique challenges and opportunities for us.
Let's talk about those challenges, because we think of Big Bear, skiing, boating, those are motorized.
Right.
And so people need to drive to get there, but you're trying to take away their enjoyment. You just want to ameliorate the entire valley's enjoyment through non-motorized
Right.
usage. So why don't you explain that?
Well,
Mr.
there's
Chairman?
almost some inherent conflicts between, those motorized and non-motorized people. And people come to the mountains and want to enjoy it, but oftentimes they don't know what that means, or they don't know what to do.
Right.
Or they don't understand the need to be respectful of the forest. And so they're going to come and they're going to go willy-nilly, or they're going to go as you direct them. And so part of our goal is to try to give them good maps so that they'll know where to go and what they're getting into, and to make them aware of the fact that this road is not just for their own private use. That if you're riding on this road, you may run into a car, or you may run into a motorcycle, or you may run into a horse person, and to be respectful of those. And
I recently interviewed, I guess, some of your compatriots. They were with the Central Coast Concerned Mountain Bikers. And what they told me, and you've told me the same, is part of the challenge you're facing now is how to keep these roads, these trails safe, clean, and eminently usable. So how are you engaging in that task, Randy?
Well, one of the challenges is that since we're mainly within national forest, is that it's a time of shrinking budgets, everywhere, and the Federal Forest Service is no exception to that. And we have one person in the whole Mountaintop Ranger District that's responsible for maintaining hundreds of miles of trails. So they need our
And
help.
you're on federal land or state land?
Federal.
Which is unique as opposed to some other organizations. For example, on the Central Coast, they're dealing with state park lands.
Right.
And they are really struggling because, as we know, several state parks are being closed, and if they're not being closed, the budgets are being slashed. I think I read that the state parks are $1.3 billion in arrears in terms of maintenance. But you're on the federal side, so is it a little better?
Maybe a little better, but the reality is it's yours,
Right.
it's mine, it's Phil's national forest. It's all of our national forest. And if we want to make sure that it's well maintained and that it's going to be there for our children and our children's children, we think it's up to people like us to step in and help out, and that's part of what we've been doing.
So tell us what you have been doing, Mr. Chairman.
well, one of the first things we did that, quite frankly, I thought was the dumbest thing in the world, but it's proven to be monumental, was we entered into an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, with the Forest Service. Basically, we developed a document, we sent it to them, they sent it through their legal channels. And now when we approach the Forest Service, one of the first questions they ask is, do you have a Memorandum of Understanding? And we can say yes. The whole tenor of the conversation changes.
really?
So it's proven to be a monumental accomplishment.
And what does that MOU say? What does it provide?
It says that we're going to work together, and so an example of some of the things that we've done in our valley is we've put up share the road signs all around the perimeter of the valley. We've been providing maps, we've been doing trail maintenance. We have heavy winters up there in Big Bear, and every year in the spring there are trees down everywhere, so we help clean that up. And one of the biggest things that we're most proud of lately is that we've made great inroads with this new trail called the Skyline Trail. And that right now
tell
is
us about
sort
it.
of the
Skyline
crown.
South Shore project.
Right. So if you could imagine Big Bear along the South Shore near where Snow Summit and the ski resorts
Sure.
are, there's a road called 2N10 or Skyline Drive that goes along that ridge line. And this trail
that we just got approval on, which is a big deal in today's climate, is a single track trail that parallels that road through a fuel break. And it has stunning views. It will have stunning views. And the goal is to really make it a world-class trail for all types of uses.
So what do you have to do?
Well, we've been working on this for 2
Right,
years,
okay.
so we've already had to do a lot to get to the point where we have approval. Now we're working with various groups like the International Mountain Biking Association, or IMBA, who we just approved to come in and help us design the trail, the actual trail and where it goes, and help us work on rehabilitating that whole South Shore area around Snow Summit and make it a much better trail system.
But do you need to bring in some type of tractor, I'm not sure what the word is, to clear the trail?
Kind of the sequence of events
Right.
is we're just in the final phases of signing the paperwork on a cost share agreement with the Forest Service, which
Cost
is
sharing.
monumental
And
for us.
let me digress. Tell us about that, because that's the type of public-private partnership that everyone is really seeing as the kind of the gold standard. Tell us what you did.
Well, in simplest form is we agreed that we will raise $40,000. This can be in cash or can be in volunteer hours, and we're going to do a combination of that. And in turn, the Forest Service has given us $80,000 that we can use to address that project. There are some parameters in terms of, part of it was to get non-motorized vehicles off of those Forest Service roads, and then there are some water issues that need to be addressed.
you have a lot of water up there.
Yeah, we do. And it's an ongoing concern. When you dump that many people into the forest that just go willy-nilly all over the place, all of that water is going to end up in the lake, and there's a major concern about pollution and those
Right.
issues, and we want to help them be respectful
So
of
you
that.
have this, let's say, $100,000 to use. Is that for the Skyline project specifically?
It's for the whole South Shore area, part of which is Skyline.
So now what happens next? I'm interested.
Well, part of that money is going to be, we have finally, after a lot of deliberation, decided that we're going to hire IMBA to do the planning.
the mountain biking
money,
organization.
yeah.
Right.
And that's going to be some portion of that money. And once this paperwork is signed, that could happen very quickly. And that they're basically going to go in and analyze that whole Skyline area and the existing trails, and they're going to show us how this should look. Once that's completed, then we're ready to actually go to work. Some of that will be volunteers, get out your shovel and come and join us. Some of that
Sounds
we
like fun,
hope will
actually.
be
It is.
AmeriCorps and other groups that we hope we can attract. We've gotten a lot of attention. Once you get money, a lot of people kind of
Oh, I'm shocked to
get
hear that, Mr.
interested.
Chairman.
But it's exciting for us because we have groups, bike clubs all over saying, when can we come and help? And Boy Scout groups and all of those kinds of organizations are saying, boy, once you're ready to roll, we would like to know because we'd like to come and support this.
Why do you love mountain biking?
Well, I personally, I'm a mountain biker, I'm a hiker, I'm a snowshoer, so I get good use out of our trails in all different ways, and I love it. I call the forest and the trails my church. It's
I've heard that before, and
it's
I
where
get it.
I go
I get it.
to get rejuvenated, to connect with nature. It just makes everything right in the world for me.
And
That's
you
what I
have
love
two
about it.
children now, teenagers, early 20s. I can't only imagine over the years since you've lived in Big Bear how much father, daughter, son time you had with those children. You have thousands of children as a former principal of Big Bear High School. I don't know if you have genetic children, but be that as it may.
Well, I lived in a world for 37 years in education of people clawing at me.
Right.
And someone was always mad about something, it seemed
Right.
like. And it doesn't make my wife happy, but I love to ride alone. It's quiet, it's beautiful. It really is a relief for me. And when I get up to here, it's just wonderful to be out in the forest and enjoy it.
And talk about heart health. I mean, I can only imagine how good biking is in terms of its aerobic activity, muscle strength, muscle development, muscle retention, bone development.
Right.
I mean, on so many levels. If we want to get involved in your organization, donate to your organization, what can we do?
Well, you can go to BigBearValleyTrailsFoundation.org. You can Google that or go to that URL online.
Terrific.
There's contact information there. You can sign up, you can donate, you can join.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for what you're doing for the entire Bear Valley. We appreciate it. We are speaking with Phil Hamilton, Randy Putz. They are part of the Big Bear Valley Trails Foundation. My name is Brad Palmer. Thank you so much for watching California Edition.